Welcome back, everyone. We're here again for another episode of the Top Innovator Series, where we look into game changing strategies and leadership ideas. And of course, we hear from the brilliant minds behind all of that. My name is Josef Martens, and I'm excited to introduce our guest today. With us today is Mathias Guille. Matthias is the VP Cloud Platform with Broadpeak, where they build technology that helps companies stream video online. Before that, he held tech leadership roles for various companies in the streaming and content delivery space. And today we're thrilled to have him with us. Matthias, it's a pleasure to have you here in the conversation.
Thank you, Joseph, for the invitation and looking forward to discuss more and know each other better.
Matthias, you're successful in your leadership journey. When you reflect on your own journey, your own trajectory as you grew, what do you think are some of the reasons for the success that you've had?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I thought about that a lot. And first of all, I think it was really a matter of opportunities. I've been very, very lucky to work with a company which was growing at that time, with new opportunity to grow within that company. And so first of all, I was a bit careless. Actually, I think it was one of my best ability is to be careless at some point, and to really try to take these opportunities, like discuss with my boss at that time, expressing that I was interested into expanding my role or expanding new horizon. And I think really, in terms of evolution in my career, it was really one of the best thing that I did in the past is really looking at the opportunities in front of me and check how I can grab them and get them right. So really careless was one of the best abilities that I developed in the past.
Interesting choice of words, the careless here. And I'm trying to associate different other words with there's a playfulness in it, right? There is a
Yeah,
not a fearlessness in it. There's
yeah.
courage in that. All of that is in there. I really like that a lot. Do you
And
think you're
it's
still
funny
there?
because now that sometimes when I hire people and I look at, develop a team, and that's one of the things that I look within the characters or the people that I'm going to hire, because I think, of course, you need to be extremely careful, like we're all professional and you want to have like a good amount of rigor in what we are doing. But I think sometimes, especially in the streaming space, we are not saving people. And it's also very, very important to have also, like, as you mentioned, that playful idea of what we are doing. Streaming is all about like the media space. We are
Right.
streaming like content that people love. So that's something that we want to keep in mind. And I think what is important about like being careless sometimes is like it can help you navigate difficult situation. If you think about it, especially lately in the tech space, every one of us deal with a lot of ambiguity. Like lot of things are ambiguous because there's so many projects to deal with, there's so many teams to navigate within, and I think sometimes being able to be careless and be a bit more like direct to the point, it's actually very, very helpful in most of the organization that we are working with today. So yeah, I think it's actually a good quality.
Would you put it in a job ad? Would you put it in a job
I
posting?
think
Or
the way that
I'm just so intrigued by the word,
yeah, no,
Matthias.
I don't think I'm putting it that way because it can also be like probably a bit repulsive for some people. But the way I put it is like I think most of the time in job description, I'm putting like the words like okay, the ability to deal with ambiguity, and I think it's really
Okay.
what it is. It's
Okay.
like sometimes you will not have all the information, but you still need to do something, and so you need to be a bit careless and like try to achieve
Yeah.
it anyway.
Yeah. Got it. Let me take a look at your leadership journey from a different perspective. I'm sure you had role models, you had mentors, you had trusted advisors who were following your journey. When you think of them, what is something that you picked up from them? Maybe you saw in them, or maybe advice they gave you, something that's still important with you today.
Yeah, I think like one of the most important mentor in my career is definitely the CEO of my current company, Broadpeak, Jack Lemonck. And I think what's interesting with Jack is like the way that is dealing with his employees and with the company in general is really looking at transparency. I think what's important is like when you try to get a team together with a common objective, it's extremely important to be transparent in bad moments and in good moments. And just to give you a couple of examples, is like, of course, when you lead a team, you make very important choices, which may not be like super easily understood by your team, right? But you can do it in two ways. You can explain yourself and try to be extremely transparent, really, again, like explain where you are coming from, why you are making this bad decision, or you can just like tell the decision and try to move on, right? I think it's extremely important to have like a good amount of transparency, because that's how you build trust. And there's nothing better than trust in a team. And it's one of the things that like Jacques told me is like, transparency is always, and telling the truth is always the best way, like to get out of situations. And so I think it's really one of the things that I get out of like of his leadership is really, like being transparent, build trust with your colleagues and with your employees. And I think that's what I try to apply every day.
Yeah, got it. Another look at the past, Matthias. When you think back to some moments that you encountered, what was one that really surprised you? Maybe a moment where you thought you had a clear idea of how this would play out, and then it ended up being completely different.
Yeah, that's a good one too. So first of all, if you look at my resume and what I did, I was extremely lucky to have different experiences in different parts of the world. Like if you look at, I work in Singapore, in Asia, then I work in Europe, then I moved to the US, and I was in charge of, like the Americas region. So I work with Latin America countries, or like the North America, of course. And what was experience of out of all of that is really like how to deal culturally with different people, and that was really, really interesting along the way. But I think like one of the things which was interesting is like before moving to the US, for me, I was never, it's interesting because I was never really attracted by the American dream myself. Like it was an opportunity like to discover a new country, to open a new business with a company. And now it's been 10 years, right? And so I think, like after like few years, I say, well, I'm probably not going to stay only 2 years. I'm probably going to stay way longer than that, right? So, but no, I think it's just a very big chance to be able like to work with so many different cultures, so many different ways of work. Is what I realized when I came here, right? Like it's the US is a melting pot. We've been dealing with different communities. We've been dealing with like different kind of companies. Some very, very old, especially if you look at the streaming space. We work with broadcasters, which are in the space since 30, 40, 50 years sometimes. And then also you work with what we call the new media, the new streamers, which are like a couple of years old, and so it's the culture and like the perspective are extremely different. And so for me, it has been very, very lucky to see different kind of people, different kind of like companies, because you are learning so much from it.
You mentioned the cultural differences, and you have a lot of cultural experience, right? And you and I, we share a continent of origin, even though culturally far apart with Germany and France, but at least geographically close. But what advice would you have for a executive in the US as they are looking to expand into other countries?
It's a good question. I don't think I ever thought about that, but I think one of the things which I would start with, it's a bit like theoretical, but I would advise to read a book called The Cultural Map. I don't know if you heard about this book, but so The Cultural Map, and I don't remember the name of the author, and I apologize for that, but it's really interesting. It's actually a book which is giving you clues on how cultures are different. And like if they're going to talk about like some cultures give extremely detailed feedback, some other cultures give no feedback at all. some cultures are extremely direct. Some cultures are not direct at all, right? So it's actually giving you all the different criteria of how to define a culture and how culture is working. And is actually giving you clues based on countries. So it will tell you like, okay, in France, we are extremely direct, right? Like we are very, very good. We are very, very bad at giving feedback, but we're extremely direct, which is for an American, it's actually pretty hard to deal with because Americans have a very, very strong culture of feedback, right? But as an American, if you go to France and if you give like very detailed feedback to someone, then in France, I think people will believe you patronize them, right? So there's a lot of difference like that. And so I think this book do actually a very, very good job to highlight this. And it can give you like
Very
a
cool.
map a little bit on how to deal with different cultures. So I think like in theory, this is extremely helpful. I think, of course, you know, like looking from, you know, the perspective from the US is like, especially if you have been working only in the US, is like the US is driving so much force from a global perspective in terms of evolution and technologically speaking in particular. But and so it's super easy like to come from the US with all the new ideas and the innovation and go to other country and try to push them. But the problem of that is like you really need to look at the perspective of your customers and the perspective of the partners that you are going to have, because there's so much legacy, there's so much past, you know. And if you look, for example, again, like coming back to the example I know the best, which is a streaming space, you know, there are different standards. If you are looking at Europe is using a standard called DVB. If you go to the US, it's a different standard. So the ideas are different, and the way that things have been built are different, right? So you can try to come and try to push your idea and believe like, oh, that's the way that we are doing it in the US, and you should do the same. That's probably never going to work, right? Like you can come with like a position of like a guidance and advising, but you should never forget like people are going to build on something pre-existing, right? So I think it's really coming with a lot of humility, open-minded, and just keeping like what you are, and then making sure that like you can come with all the good ideas coming from the US. But like, yeah, I think it's very important to be very humble. But again, like if you are like ready for that journey, probably you will be humble. So yeah.
Yeah, very cool. And just as a reminder for the book, it was called The Culture Map. Did I get that right?
The Culture Map. Yeah.
The Culture Map. Okay, awesome. Now, Matthias, we talked about your past. I'd like to take a look at the present, where you are now. Not a question about companies or titles or anything like that, still about personal or leadership growth. When you look at where you are today, what's an area where you think there is room to grow? There is another level that you can reach. There is more that you can achieve. What's the leadership area, the developmental area that you would focus on?
Yeah, it's really a good one. I think today, as a leader, there's this big wave that like everyone talk about, which is AI, right? Like, and I think it's extremely important as a leader to be extremely aware of what's going on with AI. And you need to find probably the right balance between knowing enough on AI that like you can make it intelligible for your team, and you can help your team with AI. I think that's really one of the things that like leaders needs to look at for tomorrow. Is like, how can you use the AI on your personal level so you can make your team more performant, you can make your team members actually more productive, and you can help them progress in their journey and in their abilities, right? And I think right now today it's super easy to either look at AI from like a very, very I will say like productivity perspective. You know, like people are looking at AI as like solver of any problem and something like that. But I think AI in general is like it's actually a great tool to fix the pain of like which has been like in the tech industry since many years, right? So I think it's number one is how to use AI to help your team. That's number one. And number two is like it's also super easy to forget about AI, because every one of us is we're so much into the business and we run the numbers and we are looking for the next wave of growth. And um, AI is complicated. I mean, in the way that it's actually very, very hard um, to understand, like what is going to impact for you and for your team. So you need to take some time for that. You need to actually like reflect on it a lot. You need to test it yourself. As a leader, sometimes, like we forget to be individual contributors, but this is your chance to be individual contributor again. You can test it. It's super easy. While it's complicated, it's also like super affordable, like from like a cost, but also from a technical perspective. So yeah, I think right now it's very important as a leader to embrace it, to be able to find the best way for your team to use it and to progress with it, and not to use it just because you got pressure to use it, right? Like it's really to have
Right.
kind of like a journey, a mental journey to decide how to use it, and not to put just it in a way of your team colleagues, right? So
Yep.
yeah, I think it's really what's important today.
Yep. Yep. AI is probably a good topic to look into the future as well. Let's talk about the future of leadership for a moment. If we were to have this conversation again in 5 years, and we're talking about what has changed in leadership recently, not technology, but leadership, what do you think we might talk about? What do you think might be the difference in 5 years?
Yeah, I think coming back to what I was saying, I think leadership has been um, really about like optimizing organization in particular, and like making sure that a good leader is able like to have a mission, get a group of people, like be excited about that mission, and getting the deliveries that been needed for the business, right? So, and this is still very, very important. I think leadership now today needs also to reflect and to be able also like to um, as a good part of individual contribution as well. I think the time where leader were just managers, which are like managing team and giving direction, it's done.
Mhm.
That's what you see also from the big tech, of course. But
Yeah.
I think it's very, very important that a leader get back to his place, which is demonstrating by doing.
Mm.
Like, and then so I think we need to come back a little bit to that. And again, AI can be an extremely useful tool for this, because with AI, basically, you can be the one building the prototype. You can be the one building the MVP. You can be the one, instead of just using Word, you can create the tools, you can create the demos, you can create all of that and get the team excited by it. And so I think it's really what is going to change in the next 5 years. Is like, it's not going to be about just, like team motivation, team building is going to be much more than that. And I think, like it's time for the leaders to get into their own hands the matter of that. And if you look at this, I see already some leaders getting that way. I'm not going to talk about the big guys, but like if you look at Sergey at Google, he left and then he came back and he started leading team on the AI because he was excited by that. And I think it's a good example. But you have other companies like this in Europe. We have a company called OVH, and the CEO is actually back to
Okay.
business, start developing also like some specific module of the platform, because he wants to get like people around get excited about it, and like
Mm.
he wants to have a new wave of excitement. So I think leaders with AI can
Mhm.
actually get people more excited by just like promoting a vision, but actually showing the vision.
Yeah. Yeah. Great example. And there's certainly a lot of passion and enthusiasm crystallizing around it, no doubt. Let me ask you one last question, Matthias, and then we're going to land the plane. If you could change something about how many of the peers are leading, not talking your company, but all tech leaders that you're seeing, and you could somehow elevate their leadership, what's something that you would focus on?
It's um I think it's a hard question, like to be fair, because I don't want to be judgy or anything like that. Every business is important, but like the way I look at the evolution of the tech industry in general, like I think there's sometimes a lack of looking for good. I think there's a lot of very, very important brains which has been working on stuff which are a bit, um, I would say, like negligible. Like, well, I mean, like winning few percent in terms of conversion, like for advertisement or stuff like that. I think it's a bit of a shame that put the best brain we have on this. So I hope, like leadership also will look a little bit for getting a good reason for working on some project and on some product. And, as a matter of fact, if you look at what I'm doing today in the streaming industry, I think what really excites me is like, the streaming. We do streaming because people love to experience good movies.
Right.
We do streaming because like we want to deliver what people like to watch and get the brain away because they look something which is like exciting and stuff like that. And so I think like it's very important to always find a good reason for leading a mission or for leading a team. And I think people need probably great if people can put that a little bit on the center of what they are doing. But I don't want to be judgy because it's also difficult for everyone. We want to be successful, and but yeah, no, I wish we put more brains on more important problems, basically.
Got it. Mathias, thank you so much. It was a real pleasure having you here.
Thank you so much, Joseph. Looking forward to discuss more.
To everyone else there, please remember to share, subscribe, and join us again for our next podcast. And of course, as always, make sure to keep your brain cells active.